Gospel reading for today is from Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. Then Jesus and his disciples arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. And when he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of him. For many times it had seized him, and he was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. And then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion." For many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. And now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine is feeding. And the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these, and so he gave them permission. And then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherd saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. And then the people came out to see what had happened. And then they came to Jesus and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So Jesus got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with Jesus. But Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." And so he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. And so the Bible talks about demons. Today we have a lot of different words for demons. We've learned how to label our demons with words from psychology and medicine that identify various forms of behavior. In today's reading from the Gospel, the demons are simply named Legion, for the man is possessed of many demons. As I study this story, I think about the demon-possessed man, about Jesus' healing touch, and I think about the community that surrounded the demon-possessed man. And let me tell you about a man I once knew. His name was Tim. Tim was part of the fourth generation of a family with deep roots in the church I served back in Oshkosh. Tim's grandmother called me one day to set up a baptism for Tim's 3-month-old son. And I said I would have to meet with Tim and with Tim's wife. And grandmother hesitated for a moment. She said, "Is that really necessary?" And I said, "Some instruction is required, yes." "We'll see how it goes," was Grandma's answer. And we set a time to meet with Tim and his wife. And when that time arrived, I was surprised when a knock came on my office door, and I opened it to see Tim's mother and father standing there. Behind them was Tim's grandmother, and they said others would be coming. And so I ran off and found some folding chairs to accommodate a larger group. And these family members had actually arrived early in order to prepare me to meet Tim. Tim has had his problems, his dad said. And they were not quite sure how he would handle the pressure of standing up in church for the baptism. I waited for Tim and his wife, but next to arrive were his sister and an aunt. And finally, Tim and his wife arrived holding the baby. And seeing Tim for the first time, I was immediately glad that my office had 2 doors in opposite corners. And I actually moved my chair a little closer to the door furthest from Tim. Tim was a physically large man, and he had to enter my office kind of one shoulder at a time, ducking down to get below the door there. And even now, when I read the gospel story, in my mind, I see a man that looks a lot like Tim. And I realize this large showing of family, they were the fetters and the chains that were trying to keep Tim in bounds. And I began the meeting, and as we talked, Tim opened up. He confessed to making mistakes in his life. Anger was the name of his demon. He'd actually been in prison for beating up another man over some small matter. And his body shook as he spoke about these things like it was about to boil over. And you could tell that he was angry and frustrated by life in general. Tim was a frightening man who, among other things, confirmed what his parents had told me. He did not handle being in a crowd of people very well. And we were asking him to come to church on Sunday morning, stand up in front of the crowd while his son was baptized. Well, I did what I could to reassure him. I walked him through what would happen during the baptism service. I told him I would cue him with the answers that parents make, and then I prayed for the family and sent them on home. And after the instruction, the family filed out. As the day for baptism approached, I learned that Tim was becoming increasingly anxious. Early morning on the Sunday of the baptism, I got a call from Tim's grandmother. Tim was upset about some things and decided not to come to the baptism. Grandma said, "Could you talk with him?" And I said, "Sure, I'll talk with him." I did talk with Tim. I calmed him down, but I sensed this demon anger trying to emerge. And for the first time in my life, I found myself walking to church afraid of what might happen. I arrived at the church, and the first thing I did there is I took my ushers aside and I asked them if they could sit up front in the front pew that Sunday morning. And I was a bit surprised that they did not question why or what might happen. No one in the church that morning asked, why did the ushers sit up front? And later on, I realized it was because they all knew Tim. Tim had been in that church for a long time. They had watched him grow up. They knew about his anger. And so when he was there, no one questioned the need to bind him with the presence of family and community. Well, the baptism went as planned. There were no problems. And later on, people remarked how well Tim had handled himself that Sunday morning. And I listened to them, and I didn't tell them about the tears that were in Tim's eyes during the baptism. I realized Jesus was working on that demon. I was meeting Tim for the first time when I saw those tears. That was the real Tim. Tim was wrestling with his demon. And one can sense that same conflict in the gospel story today. Verse 28, before the demons shouted Jesus, the man, when he saw Jesus, he fell down before him. In Mark's gospel, in chapter 5, Mark adds that the man had actually seen Jesus from far off, and he was running to worship Jesus. And so you got to sense the conflict within the man. The man is in there knowing Jesus can help, running to Jesus for help, bowing down before Jesus, worshiping Jesus, but the voice coming out of his mouth is the demons trying to drive Jesus away. I know what I am. I know what I've done. I know what I should be. I know that Jesus can make me clean, but what I say is, Jesus, go away from me. My demons like it here. What do you do with demons? First thing you have to do is name them. You name the reality. Name your demons. The man in today's gospel story, Tim and my story from Oshkosh, both of them had to name the reality. Tim, sitting in my office in the presence of his wife and other family, acknowledged his demon. In today's gospel, the man bowed down, worshiped Christ, and named the demons legion. But take note also of the power of the community in both stories. In both the gospel story and in my story about Tim, the men were surrounded by a community that set boundaries, and might be a little confusing for us to see, but they loved these men, keeping the demons in control. Luke chapter 8, verse 35. And then the people came out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. Afraid of what? Well, they were afraid of something they could not yet understand. See, we understand this great power of Jesus. We understand the spiritual power better because we live on this side of the cross. In the gospel story, Christ had not yet been revealed to the world. He had not yet faced the cross. He was not yet risen Christ. And so they asked Jesus to leave. Help us to just kind of let this boil in our minds for a while till we understand better. They asked Jesus to leave. And what does Jesus do? Jesus leaves. Jesus just quietly, casually gets in the boat and heads home. but not before planting the seed. Jesus says to the healed man in verse 39, return to your home, declare how much God has done for you. And so he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him.